So the high ground maneuver is where you take people to the level where they all agree. If you say, well, we did something bad because you did something bad, you've given everyone something to disagree with, which is bad behavior. They might be disagreeing with your behavior, you might be disagreeing with their bad behavior, but everybody has something to disagree with. If you take it up a level and you say, yeah, good point, we don't want to be like you. We don't want to be as bad as the other team. We don't want to sink to your level. We don't want to become the thing that we hate, which is actually a real strong thought. Let me put it that way. We're trying not to become the thing that we dislike. We're trying not to be dragged into that mud. It happened, and we're going to try to be better than that. The message that everybody accepts, here's the most powerful thing I might ever tell you. So I'll pause for a moment and say it again. Here's the most powerful thing I might ever tell you. Instead of saying, no, what I did was okay, even when it wasn't, which never works. Nobody ever came ahead by doing something bad, getting caught and saying, oh, that wasn't so bad. That never worked. Here's what you do. You're right. What I did was bad. I've learned from it. Here's what I plan to do in the future to avoid that mistake. Because the human experiment, let's call it, or the human experience, is about improving. Right? That's the whole game. There's nobody who argues against improving. We have, you could argue, a Christian country, meaning that even if you're not Christian, you're probably buying into Christian values if you're an American. And what's the core of Christian values? Well, forgiveness, yes, but forgiveness of what? Sin, right? So that the core Christian value, and even if you're not a Christian, you probably buy into at least this part of it, is that people are flawed. So if your argument is, hey, other people, you're flawed, have you really moved the argument forward? How about more like, yeah, we're not getting it done. We're not the type of people we want to be. How about how do we get better? How do we get past hypocrisy, calling each other hypocrites and acting like that's somehow useful? How do you get past that to an understanding that neither side did something that was useful, and you've got to figure out how to improve, how to be better, how to make your system better, how to make you a better person? Who disagrees with that? If I tell you I did some bad things before, but I'm trying to get better, do you say, well, fuck that guy? No, you never do. You say, role model, right? If you see somebody who says, man, I was bad before, but here are the things I'm doing to try to get better, and you try to be a better person, do something better for the world, do you hate that guy? Nope. It's pretty easy to get over people's mistakes if you know they realize they made them. If they don't admit their mistake, you never get anywhere. Now the gray area here is that sometimes you don't think you made a mistake and everybody else does. In those situations, there's a little bit of art to it, but in general, you want to embrace your mistake and tell people what you're going to do about fixing it. Do you remember the famous AntennaGate problem with the first, I think it was first or second iPhone, must have been the second, or iPhone 4 or whatever it was, where if you held the phone a certain way, your finger would be on a part of the phone that interfered with the antenna, and you would lose your signal. Now, can you think of a worse problem for a phone-making company to have than, well, my phone, since I'm doing this on my phone, I have to use this as my visual persuasion about a phone. This little spare battery will be my phone. Can you imagine a worse problem if you're a phone maker than, all right, our phone is good unless you try to do this, because then it doesn't work. Your finger's on the place that makes it. Can you even imagine a worse problem than that? Oh, the phone's good unless you touch it with your hand. That was the problem. This phone is great unless you touch it with your hand. Now, by any measure, this was a mistake, right? So how did Steve Jobs handle this? I wrote about this extensively. He handled it by doing a press release eventually, once it became a big deal and he couldn't ignore it. And he said, they were aware of the problem. I'm paraphrasing. He said, all smartphones have problems, which was the genius part of it. All smartphones have problems. That was his reframing. It's not just we have a problem. Smartphones are new. They have problems. We want to fix it. We want our customers to be happy. Here's what we're going to do. And then he described a fix that you could get for your phone. He totally owned it. Right. So once Steve Jobs said, yes, this is a problem, you said, oh, okay, the first part's done. You've recognized this is a problem. Okay, you got to do that. Then the second part, the genius part, he reframed it. He said, we're part of a world where things don't work well. Smartphones don't always work, all right? So now he's taking you to the high ground. The high ground. Because he took you somewhere that everybody agreed. Yeah, smartphones have problems. Not this one, but they all have their own little problems, right? And then he told you what he was going to do about it. He told you how he was going to improve, how the phone was going to get better, how they had a process, how they had a solution. He didn't say we're good in the past, stop complaining. He said, yeah, it was a mistake. What we want to do is make you happy. Here's how we're going to do it. Cleanest, most perfect example of, diffuse, reframe, solution, right? It's will probably be a model for how to handle that sort of thing in the future.